Hi, I'm James from Chaosium. I sat down with Lynne and we talked about Rivers of London. Rivers of London is coming, and we've got plenty of videos about it planned. We'll be talking about the game content. We'll also be talking about the production schedule and release dates, and we'll be talking about interesting material and information that you might want to look at to make sure that you are best prepared to jump into your own games of Rivers of London once the book is released. This video is about that third point. Lynne shares a lot of interesting details that are meant to prepare you for when the book is released and you can jump into your own games. I'm going to jump across to that interview in just a moment, but first, remember to subscribe to the Chaosium YouTube channel, and thanks for watching.
The best way, I would say, of preparing yourself for a Rivers of London game, whether you know the material or not, is to play the solo adventure at the beginning of the core rules. That's why it's there. It has two purposes. It's there to introduce you to elements of the world, and it's there to introduce you to the rules and how they support storytelling in that world.
Well, that's a very direct answer. So you think that diving directly into the book is better than, that is the rule book, is better than reaching out and trying to look for other material or other supporting criteria? Just jump straight in.
If you really want to get going quickly, yes. If not, I mean, the whole idea with the game was it was written so that at best we expected people to have read the first book, so the Rivers of London novel, Midnight Riot as it's known in the US. But we weren't going to assume that. We certainly not assume that people have read all of them, because that's a lot of books now. You know, Rivers had its 10th birthday last year, so there's quite a few books and graphic novels and things there. If you prefer audiobooks, you could grab the audiobook of Rivers of London. Cobner Holbrook Smith does an amazing job narrating as Peter Grant, and they're a really good listen. So if you want to do that, by all means, go for it. But like, as I said, we tried to write the game so that there was no expectation of prior knowledge other than being aware of that these books existed, that it was urban fantasy combined with police procedural.
If you have players who are fans of police procedural or of urban fantasy, are there other series, books, or shows that you might recommend that they revisit to get themselves into the mood?
There's a series of books by the lovely Paul Cornell, who also did a similar thing. I've read the first one, I've not read the rest, but Paul is a really sweet guy, so, you know, always recommend anything he's done. There's the Vinyl Detective series by Andrew Cartmel, who co-wrote some of the graphic novels for Rivers of London. So they're all kind of that sort of an idea if you like reading your novels. If you like your police procedurals, really, it's going to sound terrible, Hot Fuzz is always a good place to start. Slightly more comedic than Rivers of London, but you know, it's not grim and gritty. The whole thing is that Rivers of London, whilst it does like to have the at least one gruesome murder per book to keep the gruesome grannies happy, it's not dark and gritty and miserable like a lot of the current crop of police procedural dramas. So you are looking for something that has more of a sense of humor to it, really, to kind of get that feel, because Ben's writing is very humorous. Yes, there's the darkness, but it's lifted by that humor.
So to dive into what you said a little deeper, the current crop of police procedurals, that sort of scan noir style, for want of a better word, that's not really the feel of Rivers of London.
No, that's a little bit too grim and a little bit too gritty. You're definitely looking more along the lines of lighter. Oh, and I'm blanking on any particular examples. But you're more sort of talking in general along the sort of sense of humor that you would see in something like Buffy the Vampire Slayer, Supernatural. So you've got that darkness, but it's leavened by the humor and the wit.
In terms of understanding London, for people who don't necessarily have a background where they're very familiar with the UK, is there any quick access portals that you would recommend to people in terms of getting up to speed with the world of Rivers of London?
Always travel guides. I think we've talked about this before. Whenever I start researching books for places I want to set them, I will go and get a travel guide, because usually they have all sorts of weird and wonderful snippets in. They've got maps, they've got all the cool places to go. They'll quite often have weird bits of folklore in them. Online map platforms, type in London, have a look round. I mean, the place is stuffed full of interesting things that you can go and have a look at. The Atlas Obscura, type in London in there and see what weird things pop up on that if you want the strange angle. There are lots and lots of places available on the web where you can dive in really, really quickly. In the core rules, we have got a chapter all about the London setting to try and bring GMs up to speed who don't know the books and aren't familiar with them. There's huge chunks of that can be used to help introduce that to the players as well who aren't familiar with it. So, there's lots of resources. London is a city that has been thoroughly documented for a very, very long time. So you're not going to have a problem finding an abundance of riches for the city.
I think those are fantastic questions. I suppose standard ending, is there anything that I didn't ask that you would want to mention? Any lines or, promo things you want to say?
Well, the book is in layout now. So that's moving along nice and smoothly. I'm still not going to tell you when it's going to be available because we are not tempting the printing gods on that one. It will be before the end of the year, though. That's all I can definitely say. I'm really looking forward to the book coming out. It's been a huge group effort on the part of many very, very talented people, with Ben closely involved in that process, and it's been a really interesting and fun process to develop this game, and I just really hope that people enjoy it when we finally get it into their hands.